Hi, I'm Cheryl Sleboda from So Much Cosplay. Today we're going to be making all sorts of crowns. They're fabric crowns, which is really exciting because the infinite variety of fabric means you have a whole playground of different styles and things you can do for any kind of cosplay, but also birthdays and dress-up parties and all sorts of fun stuff. So we're going to start by making a very superhero-like crown. So the patterns for these crowns are going to be on the website. So once you have your pattern cut out of paper, the method for doing this is all done using a fusible foam interfacing. And this foam interfacing has a fusible on one side and it is plain on the other. Now, what I like to do with this particular foam interfacing is I like to use a silver marker to mark my pattern pieces out. That way it's a mark that you can see, and that will be your cutting line as well. So you won't actually see this marker line on your finished product. So we're just going to go ahead, trace the entire thing, and you can see our entire pattern is ready to go. Now, I like to cut this out from my interfacing and then actually fuse that to my fabric. I don't like to fuse the fabric to all of this and then cut it out, because then I have pre-fused pieces of interfacing and I like to save all the scraps. So what I've done is I've already fused my interfacing, the foam interfacing, to my fabric. And I want to make sure that you leave a little tab here so that just like probably a ½ inch or so on that one end when we go to cut it out. Now I'm going to layer these two together with my backing fabric. And I have this right sides together. And I'm going to layer this fused piece onto its what we consider the lining fabric. Now, I'm going to just double check to make sure that I've got enough here on this end, because what we're going to do is when we sew around all of this, we're going to make sure that we need a spot to turn everything when we're done. So I'm just going to take a couple of pins and I'm just going to pin this together so that I can cut both layers at one time. This is just to save me an extra step while I'm cutting these out. Okay, so here we go. And now I'm going to trim this out, and I just want to make sure that that's going to be the end where I'm going to do the turning, so I'm not going to cut that part away. I'm just going to cut both of these, and I'm just going to cut as close to the fusible interlining as I can. You don't want to get too angled here, because then you'll actually cut into your seam allowance. So once I've cut that side, I'm just going to flip it over. And this is where it gets a little tricky with the curve. We're just going to take our time. These are fabrics that are just a little bit slippery, so those pins are actually helping to keep everything together. So we've cut both of those. And then again, just double check which side is going to be my turning side, and then I'm going to just trim that away. So there we go. So now we have our two pieces that we're ready to sew them together, but we need to make sure that we put in our elastic. Now, the elastic that I'm using is this glitter elastic. And I like using this glitter elastic because it's a little bit grippy when you wear it. It actually like sticks to your hair a little bit better, which is kind of neat. Okay, so again, I want to just make sure that I have the end that I'm going to be turning, because that is going to be the open side. The other side is where I need to pin in my elastic. The other thing I need to add before I put in my elastic is this bodkin. Now, this is going to help me turn everything once the crown is ready to be turned inside out. Okay, so I'm just going to put this inside here, and I just want to make sure that the crown, when it's turned, the fused side is going to be the front. So I want the piece of elastic to come off this side. So that's how I make sure I put that in. And again, we're going to pin this so that that bodkin is inside there and it's not going to get bumped by our stitching. So I'm just going to take a couple of pins. Oh, get back in there. There we go. I'm going to just pin that so that that stays there. And again, I want my bodkin to just be pinned inside. That way I know it's not going to come out underneath my machine and my stitches. Okay, so again, just taking a couple extra pins to make sure that my backing and my fused front stay together. I think we're ready to sew. So let's go to the machine. All right, now we just need to make sure that we are center needle, and we're going to be stitching very close to the edge of the foam interlining. And we want to start on the end where it's open. So that's the part that we're not going to double check to make sure that that's open. And I'm just going to use a mark on the foot to help me make this. And we're just going to back it up just a little bit because that's going to get some, when we turn it, that little section there is going to need some reinforcement. So I always back stitch on that beginning part. So we're just going to take some stitches all the way around. Now when you get to the very end, here on the bottom, you just want to stop, and my needle is down so that helps me turn, and I'm just going to turn, and I'm going to just make sure I go over the elastic and pivot again, and we just go all the way around. Don't go too fast, it'll get away from you. And here we are at the point, so we're going to just stop and we're going to pivot, and we're almost at the end. Okay. And here we are at the end again, and again I'm just going to do a couple back stitches because that's going to get a little bit of pressure when you start turning it. Okay, so we are all done. Now when you turn everything, oh, it's still attached to the machine there. There we go. I've taken out my pins and I can feel that bodkin inside there, so that's going to help me turn it. But what I need to also do before I turn it is clip the corner here on the very tip. So I'm just going to take my scissors and just give that a little snip so that that helps that point come to a nice sharp point. And the same thing for this side, you're just going to make angled cuts here on the two ends. That helps you turn everything. And again, that bodkin is inside. And that, see, helps you grab that elastic and helps pull this other side in. So you kind of get the idea here. It's going to start to fold in on itself. You're going to want to make sure you give it a little help there. And we're going to get that just tucked in. There we go. And now when I pull on that bodkin, it's going to help pull that piece of elastic. You could add a, safety pin or something to help pull it, but I find this to be a nice, easy way. Here we go. Look at that. And then once you have a handle on it, we're getting it. There we go. It makes turning it nice and easy. There we go. So you can use your point turners and you can get all these points to come out nice and sharp, but I already have one turned and ready to go. And now you have the second other end of the elastic. As you can see here, it's free, and we need to make sure that it gets tucked into the other side of the crown. So, and that open end is where we're going to insert it. I've already folded in that extra tab that we've left in. And we're going to go ahead to the machine and just sew this little bit closed. You can also do a top stitch all the way around, but we're going to skip that step for today, and we're going to just go ahead and sew this little edge closed. Now I've got this pin in the way, so I'm going to make sure that I just get that out of the way. And we're going to... And on this side, I do like to back stitch a little bit over the elastic just to give it a little more strength. And that's all there is to it. So we're just gonna take this off. And of course, you know, you can trim this up. You can also add all sorts of decorations to the front. You can add your iron-on glitter stars, you can do jewels, you can do gems. You can also make great little birthday crowns. You can do all sorts of other superheroes. I do like this particular birthday crown. I did add a piece of hook and loop tape so that I could make removable birthday years. So as your prince or princess gets older, you can just make new dates and add those on. And again, if you have a Little Mermaid or a superhero, you can do any kind of crown for cosplay or any kind of dress-up party. So I hope you give it a try.